everyone, and welcome to Charity Recruit's Boardroom session today. I'm Emily, one of the directors at Charity Recruit, and I'm really pleased to have you with us today. We're joined by Camille today, who's the COO of MVPR, a software-enabled PR platform working with some of the most exciting startups and tech businesses across Europe. Camille's got 12 years experience in global PR, communications and operational leadership, and she's sharing her insights on a topic that's becoming increasingly relevant to the sector, and that's how charities can use AI to supercharge their PR and marketing without huge budgets or complex systems. This session is designed to be practical and approachable, so we're really encouraging questions at the end. In our experience, question and answers not only helps answer what's going on in your mind, but also elevates the quality of the session for everyone involved. So please don't be shy. And with that, over to you, Camille.
Thank you so much, Emily, and really happy to be here, guys. Yeah, I hope you find the session useful. And I think I'm about 45 minutes to talk through my presentation, and with 15 minutes of Q&A at the end, but it might be quicker, it might be longer. So don't judge me if I go too fast. Well, not fast enough. I also want to say that I don't know the level of awareness of AI in this room, so I've tried to make it as all-encompassing as possible, as comprehensive. So there might be some of you who already know a lot of the things I'm going to say, or some of you who don't know anything at all. So I'm going to try not to linger on the super basic stuff and go more into the sort of like actual live practical advice. But so I've got a presentation. Let me share my screen and we can get started. Obviously, anything that isn't clear, I'm very happy to come back on at the end. I have also got my Claude AI and ChatGPT browsers open, so we can try a few things together as well at the end. Because I think the best way to try AI is actually just doing it rather than talking about it. But let me share my screen to start with. So here we go. Present. Sorry, my computer's a bit slow today, so there's a little lag, but here we are. Okay, welcome to this masterclass. So the session, as I said, 45 minutes, AI fundamentals and some applications I found to be very helpful for charities via my own work, but also by talking to a lot of different charities over the past year. You've already heard a bit about me. What I should say as well is I'm a trustee for Word Forest, which is a charity for women and girls that plant trees in Kenya to support the CO2 emission absorption, and also create jobs and build schools in Kenya. So I have been working with them on using AI internally. So I have like that practical experience, but I've also given a few of these presentations to charities in the UK, particularly via Media Trust, which is a organization that helps PR and marketing professionals share their skills with UK charities. So that's a little bit about me, but let's talk about AI. Oops, it's a little bit of a lag here. Here we go. What is an LLM? So large language model obviously is the name of the stuff that Claude and ChatGPT and other AI tools are built on. It's basically AI is essentially a database. That's why we call them large language models. They use database and they spit back information to you. So they're not that smart. They're not that human. They just have access to a lot more information at the speed that is impossible for us human to reach. So the way the AI model works is that it processes information you shared with them, and then it creates outputs based on a training it's received. That's why all of them are slightly different, because they all received a slightly different training. But the largest basis for their training is the internet. So anything that is on the internet is accessible via an AI, and that in itself makes them incredibly powerful. So the ingredient is the data. And so you have the internet, but there's also sometimes specific LLMs like ChatGPT, which have partnerships with publications like the New York Times, which has paywalls. So it's not technically the internet because it's not accessible to anyone who doesn't have a subscription. So ChatGPT has an agreement with the New York Times to be trained on their data as well. So there'll be slight differences between the amount of data available to each model, but to be very honest with you, I haven't really seen a difference that is meaningful enough for me to choose one model over the other for that reason. Then the recipe is the prompt. So what you ask the AI and how you ask it and what you add and specific words you use and in what cadence, that will basically determine how useful it is to you. Some people are calling it, the art of prompting or prompt engineering, or there's all kinds of terms to call it, but it's basically how you word what you want from an AI, and how they respond to it. And then finally, it's the meal, so the output, what you receive back from everything that the AI has absorbed and understood of your request. So that's very basic. I am really sorry for those who already know all of this by heart and have read it in the media over the past whatever year this has been. But so key tools, let's talk about key tools. You've got ChatGPT. So this is that's the one I have on my phone. It's a really easy app. It allows me to like voice note emails. It's really, really transactionally very helpful. It's very good at analyzing data at large scale. So whenever you've got a spreadsheet or a really large report, I find ChatGPT to be the best at analyzing it and giving you a summary and outputs. Then you've got Claude, which is the parent company is called Anthropic when the parent company of ChatGPT is OpenAI. Claude is great for marketing, writing, creativity. It's also got better privacy settings. The model isn't trained on your chats if you're on the paid version, which is not the case for the others. So Claude is always my favorite, but then Charities will choose to use different tools depending on what sort of like partnership agreements they might have, or what, discounts they might get from different providers. I know a lot of Charities use Gemini, for instance, because they use the Google Suite and Gemini comes as a bonus to them. So basically do what's most cost efficient to you. Those models don't have huge differences in quality overall. It's just a slight preference that I'm talking about here between Claude and ChatGPT. Copilot, similar to Gemini, but for Microsoft. Similarly, I am sure it might be more financially interesting for some companies who are already paying for the Office suite to have Copilot rather than anything else. I haven't tried it myself, so I can't tell you whether it's good or not. But again, it's good to try and test different models for free to see if there is a real difference in quality. And then you've got specialized tools, like thousands of them appearing every day, to be honest. The ones I really like that I wanted to highlight here are Gamma, which I used to do this presentation. So basically just a tool that you feed text to and it creates a PowerPoint deck for you, which means that you never have to be worried about your PowerPoint skills ever again, which for me was a pretty interesting moment. And then you've got Fireflies, Granola, different transcription tools. So these tools are things that you pay for. Unfortunately, most of the time it has to be paid for, but they come with you on all of the calls you have, and they take notes, they give you summaries, and in some cases give you action points for all of the participants of the call. It sounds like it's not groundbreaking, and it feels like a lot of money to spend to have this, but the time you will save will be insane, because you'll never have to take notes again. You'll never forget about anything again because you'll have it all in writing. You'll never have to think about who does whatever again. And that in human costs is massive. Especially for board meetings that last for a very long time. And I'm sure some of you already have this enabled, but I don't know how much you use it. Whereas actually a 2-hour board meeting call transcript fed into an AI could be gold for Charities in so many ways. I'm going to pause here for a minute. Emily, do I look at the chat, remind me, or will you tell me if there are any questions, like pressing questions before the Q&A?
I'll keep my eye on the chat. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on then. If my slides agrees to move on. I'm sorry, there's a massive delay. I don't know why. Here we go. Okay, so the difference between free and paid plans, a lot of charities I've spoken to are very worried about the cost of a paid plans because all of the training they usually receive on AI or things they hear about AI has to do with the paid plans. And it's true, the free plans only go so far because you only have basic features available. And you don't have the project capabilities that you have with paid plans. And if you want to use AI for operational efficiency, for marketing, for a lot of other reasons, a paid plan is necessary. And that is because you are able to save a lot of context. You're able to train your AI on your charity, so you don't have to do it over and over again, which may be the difference between you using AI efficiently and getting a lot of value out of it, and you using AI and finding it really frustrating. So most paid plans are between 20 and 30 quid a month. Now, I know it's a lot for charities who don't have almost ever any cash available, but if you think about it in terms of a intern or a person or even a part-time consultant that you'd have to pay, it is really worth the money on a yearly basis. A lot of charities are also worried about the security and data protection implications of using AI. Paid plans is not perfect, but it is another layer of safety net because you can opt in, opt out of being part of a data training. It is by nature more secure because it is an enterprise feature, and it handles sensitive data better. So my take is even if you save just 1 hour per week, it would justify the monthly cost. And you can do some fundraising specifically for this purpose if that is necessary. I generally think used in the right way, it is the right investment to make as opposed to others. Like it's not just create money out of nowhere and get a bucket for AI. It's more what can you cut that you can put into this that would make a huge difference in terms of your output, your efficiency. But again, I completely get that it feels like a prohibitive cost when we don't have a lot of cash on hand. And I'm hoping that in the future that cost will decrease because there will be a lot of competition from different models. There's actually a model called DeepSeek that is Chinese that I don't recommend you using, but that is completely free. I don't even think there's a paid version. So um it is going to go down, I'm hoping. So let's go to the art of prompting. So how do you get what you want out of an AI by asking the first time? The first thing is be specific and detailed. It doesn't matter if you write something like feels like a page of instruction into one small chat box. The AI will know how to use that information. It will remember it. It will understand all of it. So it doesn't matter how long it is. The more detailed, the better. And if you want to be climate conscious about it, do it all in one go rather than like scattergun approach, which uses more energy. So big prompt from the beginning. Try to think about everything that you want in what you're getting. Ideally, you're also providing relevant context. So you're not just asking a question. Say you ask something about a social media calendar that you're planning for, I don't know, let's take Climate Awareness Week. You first of all ask the question about what you want. So I would like some ideas on posts to do around Climate Awareness Week on behalf of my charity, whatever the name of the charity. That's not enough. What you want to do is also attach a sample of previous social media posts you have done that you've liked so that the AI knows what good looks like for you. And then you might also want to attach the audience information. So our audience are these people. They have, they range from that age to that age. They spend a lot of time online. They have busy lives. We target them in those ways successfully. And then you might also want to add something like, this is what we want them to feel when they read those posts. So as much information as possible on the audience, the tone of voice, the style you like, and the end goal. So what are we trying to achieve with this prompt and this output? We ultimately want to raise more funding. And that is key because the difference between saying we ultimately want to raise more funding and not saying that means you'll get a social post that can be completely generic and talk about climate. and a social post that is actually super strategically aligned and subtly make people redirect them to a fundraising page. So again, relevant context, specific instructions, and then ask for the format you want, because AIs, they're getting pretty good at guessing what the best format is for a specific question, but it's even better if you can tell them. So say, look, I want a Excel spreadsheet because that's the way we use social posting, or I want different pillars, different sections in a Google Doc. It won't give you the Google Doc or the spreadsheet, but it will give you an output that you can copy paste into the format that you want as a result. Say also things like, I want you to put at the beginning of the document a description on what that document is, and at the end, I want you to outline next steps for the person looking at this document. So explain, don't be afraid to over-explain what the output needs to have at the beginning, the middle, and the end.
I'm just going to step in if you don't mind. Hannah's just asking around whether you have any other suggestions about keeping usage lower. She works for a climate change charity and really like your point about the big prompts. Is there anything else you can suggest at this point?
Yes. So images, don't do it. Images absorb a lot of water and energy. They are very useful for charities, and that might not have like a database of like approved, copyrighted, signed off photos. But if you can avoid using AI to create images, that's what costs the most. Other than that, I've got a contact. I will send you the name, Emily. There is a person who does similar training as me for charities, but in a climate conscious way. So he will have a lot of tips on that. And I think he's written several blogs on the issue that off the top of my head, I can't remember every single point about them, but I will share the LinkedIn, his LinkedIn
Amazing.
profile with you, Emily, and you can share it with the
Thank
group.
you.
Because
Well, maybe we'll have him on for another
yeah,
presentation.
he'd be a great guest. He'd be a great guest for you guys to have for sure.
Thank you.
Um, but just to say, this may seem controversial, but refusing to use AI on the basis that is bad for climate might mean in the future that you're losing out so much on everyone else using AI that you can't do the job you're meant to be doing with your climate charity. So it is not a good way to look at things. It's not how I would ideally envisage people using AI. But the reality is anyone who's not using AI right now will be left behind in a way that is still not very comprehensible by the entire society that we're in. And so it is on the company themselves to figure out the climate play, not the users. Now, be as climate conscious as you can in your day-to-day life, but don't have the climate element prevent you from using AI at all, because that could have, I think, worse consequences for your charity. Right. Okay. One technique I really like is impersonation. So I often work with clients who have a very specific types of audiences. So it might be chief technical officers at tech companies. It might be chief sustainability officers at large Fortune 500 businesses. It might be chief operations officer at small startups between 50 and 100 employees. And I always say, whenever you're doing anything content-wise, marketing-wise, social media-wise, make sure that at some point in the workflow, you ask the AI to impersonate your audience with their preferences and their habits and give you a critical look at what you've produced and whether it actually speaks to them. Now, what's really helpful with the impersonation technique is that it will allow you to bring onto your team skills that you don't have. So say you don't have an experienced fundraising director, then you can ask your AI to impersonate it. And so it doesn't mean that you're in front of someone who's actually an experienced fundraising director, but the AI will then go online and look at the entirety of the internet in terms of like, what does a fundraising director know? What have they built their businesses on? What are their skills? It will process thousands and hundreds of thousands of best practice articles in about 30 seconds. And then it will give you a lens that will be, no matter what, far better than what you would have gotten if you were just reading about it yourself. So it's not like having an experienced fundraising director, but it's pretty close. So that's to like add skills to your team. But you can also enhance your existing skills. For instance, you have a social media manager, they work 2 days a week. They are completely swamped, they don't have enough time to do anything. You really like them, they're very talented, you just don't have more money to pay them. Then get the AI to impersonate that person with all of their skills, get that person to train the AI based on what they know and what they've produced in the past. And all of a sudden, you've got almost like a 1.5 worker doing the same thing. Um, Examples of roles you can go for: major donor. I did that a lot with my charity because sometimes we had a lot of information about who were our biggest donors. So we did an analysis of like, okay, who are they? Where are they based? Why do they donate? Why have they been with us for so long? And how do we find more of them? And so based on that information, we created like an email campaign and pulled out a list of people to reach out to, and it was really helpful. Grant evaluator, great when you do a grant submission and you have no idea whether it's good or not because you've looked at it for too long and it's taken you hours and hours. Run it through an AI. I mean, I go as far as saying get the AI to fill in the grant submission in the first place because that's a perfect use case for it. But you can also have the evaluation. Corporate partner, service user, like anything you want that is a known role, the AI will have more information about them than you do. And even if you feel like they're missing something, you can tell them. You can tell them, the way you've impersonated that fundraising director is more someone that would work for a big charity, but we're a small charity. So I want you to tweak your experience and be more someone who's very used to working with very small charities and get them to scale rather than someone who works for Cancer UK. And then you can just tune it as you go. And so all of these impersonations are very useful for strategy development. So having an extra layer of strategic thinking that you might not have. Often working for a charity is very lonely. You don't have like 6 people looking at the same problem and have different perspectives. AI can provide that for you. It can impersonate 3 different people and give you 3 different viewpoints of something you've written. Content review and writing, really, really helpful because again, having that second pair of eyes with those added skills embedded in them is really helpful. And then, a really highly critical lens is always helpful. So I find particularly for charities who work with government or public service where there's like really long times, everything is very difficult, you can't communicate super smoothly, having an AI that sort of like predicts and preempts the roadblocks ahead can be very helpful. Okay, so I've got a few examples of things, and I will send you this deck afterwards so you can copy and paste. You can use as much as you want of this. But one mode I really like for ChatGPT, I mean, Claude has it as well, I think, but I, for some reason, ended up with ChatGPT on my phone rather than Claude. So I have a very busy life, and so I like to fill the commuting time with sending emails. So I often use voice mode and say, hey, this is the email I want to write. Can you transcribe it? And then can you turn it into something polite? So that's a very basic, basic application of voice mode. But here's another one where I have an example of, okay, this charity is launching a training program for social impact organization. The charity works with young women and girls affected by criminal exploitation and violence, and we're launching our new national training offer to increase revenue, reach a broader training audience, and support systems change. Our goal is that young women's experience will be better understood and more young women and girls will be supported appropriately. So what I will then do is that I will say this, and then ChatGPT will say, okay, I get it, thanks. And then I will say, okay, I want you to do 4 things. 1, build an external campaign to officially launch this training program. Check with me after. Then once you've checked with me, I want you to create a timeline of actions to generate maximum visibility. Then once you've done that, I want you to talk to me about it and we decide together what's good to keep. And then I want you to develop promotional strategies to build a pipeline of potential clients out of this timeline. And then check back in with me to make sure the strategies are right. And then finally, let's identify cost-effective channels that match our like small resources. And as we go, I want you to ask me questions to tailor the approach to our audience and to our experience. So if you do that in one go at the start, you will then enter an actual conversation with someone. That means that the AI will not just like throw text at you. It will stop, it will ask, it will check in. And so all of a sudden, you've transformed like a half-hour commuter journey into a strategic session. And then at the end of it, you've got something you can take, copy and paste and work on yourself, you know. So super helpful prompt and mode. Best practice to review AI outputs, because one big problem about AI is accuracy decreases as you go. So it might start as like 99% accuracy, and then the longer you're in a conversation, accuracy will drop a little bit. And it might drop from the beginning. No one solved the hallucination problem yet. No one solved the issue of AI making up stuff. So you always need to fact check information. So say you're at the end of a long conversation, the AI's produced a report based on data that you fed it. What I usually do is at the end of it, I say, give me a source for every single line of text put in that document. And then usually what happens, the AI goes through your project or the attachments that you shared, and it will say, yeah, that's verified, that's verified. And then you will have inevitably a couple of sentences be like, oops, no, I made that up. That is not substantiated by any claims of anything that you've shared. So make sure you do that either at the very end or at several points throughout the conversation. Ethics, obviously, really important. A lot of charities deal with very sensitive human topics. I think it's kind of down to the charity of maybe establishing a very, brief code of conduct. Maybe identify the kind of information you will share with an AI and the kinds that you want. Whenever you have, I don't know, if you work with people who are sick or people who are victims of violence, make sure that everything you share is anonymized. Never share people's names and email addresses, because you never know, there have been leaks before. And so just be very mindful of people's human stories, particularly. So verify statistics is pretty much the same as fact check information, except that sometimes Claude in particular, and ChatGPT does it too, they make up numbers. They round up numbers because it looks better. And so make sure that every number that you use that has been used in an AI output is verifiable. And then finally, a really good way to do it is to make sure that your output is matching your charity's personality, is to, I'll show you at the end in a project for Claude or ChatGPT, you can create a tone of voice. So you can upload a bunch of document, and then you can give a really detailed description of how you talk as a charity. And that could be, sharp but sensitive. It could be very empathetic towards others. It could be kind but funny. Like, it's completely up to you. But if you have that inside your project's instructions as a baseline, then everything the AI will produce should normally match that tone of voice. Okay, another example. I do this. I advise every charity to do this, to be honest, because it's always a good time for a website audit. And if you do it with a company, they might charge you a lot of money for it when you don't need to do that anymore. So the great thing about Claude and ChatGPT and all these guys is that they now have access to the internet. So if you previously, when you pasted a URL, a link into a chatbot, the AI would say, sorry, I can't read this link, I need text. It's not the case anymore. So you can send any links that you can read without a subscription or a paywall or whatever, the AI can read. So start by feeding the AI your website and say, okay, these are our audiences. These are our goals for the year. Give me a critical review of whether my message is clear to all audiences. The content on the website does the job. Where is it unclear? Where is it clear? What's good? Is the layout okay? Are we leading people to the right places? Is the conversion journey to donation as optimal as it could be? And then give me quick wins to implement your recommendation without spending a lot of money on a website designer. So always make sure that you're giving it context on your resources, because without context on your resources, the AI can say, well, your website is awful. We recommend having a infographic, dynamic video on the homepage. And so it will go basically, there will be no limits given to its recommendation. Whereas if you say, look, we have no money, we have no time, but I want quick wins on how to improve the website for the objectives that we have and the audience that we're targeting in less than an hour, what can you suggest? And then you can just expand little by little. But this is a really helpful prompt.
Just to cut in a minute there. Cecilia is just asking if we can do this for social media pages.
So, very good question. You can probably do it for LinkedIn. So, I don't know is the honest answer. I think you can Claude and ChatGPT have access to LinkedIn. So if you ask a ChatGPT question like, give me a summary of what this person has posted in the past year, it will be able to do that. But I don't know the extent to which LinkedIn is sharing its data. So the best advice I have is just give it a go. Because you can give that a go on a free version. Being a paid or a free version won't change anything to them having access to LinkedIn or not. So I would do that. Try that and see what happens. For Twitter, Grok, which is Elon Musk's bot, which I should warn you against because it's clearly got some white supremacist tendencies, has access to all of the Twitter data. So if you ever want to have a question about Twitter data, you won't be able to do it anywhere but on Grok. But Grok's free, so you can try. And Facebook and Instagram, I don't think so. My instinct is that none of them have access to them. But it's also not social media I use at all for my work. So I also don't know if I'm saying the right thing here. So I would give it a go and see if it's accurate. Mm, So I've put like a prompt here um, that you can literally copy and paste and insert your goal, your website. You'll see that I've said impersonate a skillful website expert with experience in whatever industry or fields that you want. Um, and then after you get the first output, I've written a follow-up here for you. Summarize all of this in a short, cost-free, digestible, actionable strategy for the next 3 months. That's a good way to do it. But obviously you can edit it in whatever way will be most helpful to you. Um, Campaign development and planning is also a really great area for AI use. So often charities will have either donation campaigns or they'll do like an awareness campaign, or they will be like basically short bursts of activity throughout the year rather than like super proactive ongoing engagement. And so AI can help with helping you define what success looks like in a really pragmatic and realistic way, which you might not always know. Like I have met with a lot of charities who say, okay, well, let's just do this because it feels like a good idea. But then, weeks in, months in, we realize that actually we don't really know what the goal is and we don't really know how to measure whether it was successful or not. And then you end up having a lot of time sort of wasted by doing something that felt good, that felt like it was something useful, but it was very much finger in the air and there was no metric associated with it. AI can help you find metrics, find measurement frameworks for whatever you do that has like a donation goal or an awareness goal. It will also help you with implementation because it knows how to give you practical recommendations if you don't have a lot of people, a lot of money, which can't be said of consultants that you might go to. Strategy, again, resource conscious frameworks. Sorry, that was a mouthful. Strategy, as I said, impersonating strategic stakeholders with different experience to you, really helpful. And then finally, one thing I find really helpful is I will show you in a minute as well. On ChatGPT and on Claude now, there is a deep research module. I don't know if it's on the free version, you might have to check that, but it is definitely in the paid version where an AI might produce a very lengthy report about something. And what I usually do is like say, okay, I want you to analyze let's take Alzheimer's UK's the biggest charity on Alzheimer's in the UK. I want you to analyze their PR strategy for the past year via looking at their existing media coverage, where their spokespeople are being quoted, the announcements they've made, and then I want you to pull a report on it and give me some key learnings for a charity operating in the same sector but with a smaller footprint. And then what ChatGPT will do is that it will ask you 3 clarifying questions. And then once you've answered those clarifying questions, it will take about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then it will produce a very lengthy report on like what the strategy was and how they went there, and then some actionable pointers. And then that's downloadable as a PDF. And all of a sudden you've got extraordinary context to give another AI about what you want to achieve. And so I often do this. I produce a deep research report and then I attach it to a different conversation and say, hey, I've got all this context. I want you to create a strategy that borrows from these people without mimicking it with the context you have on my charity, and propose an action plan. So again, really helpful. Here's an example. Find 5 successful awareness campaigns by small UK charities addressing neurodiversity, for instance, in the past 3 years. For each, explain what approach they took to key messaging, which channels they used, what engagement strategies they used, how they measured outcomes, and then any elements that would work with minimal resources. So yeah, deep research on Claude or ChatGPT. You can copy and paste that and then adapt it to whatever environment you have. Honestly, this is really, really helpful for start of the year strategy, but it's also helpful at any point in the year. Just like a sense check on whether what you're doing is following the kind of playbooks that have worked for others. So social media, obviously really helpful for using AI for social media content is really helpful. It can help you create, as I said, content that matches your voice. I find that when I train an AI in a project on one of my clients' existing LinkedIn posts, who's got a really strong voice, the AI becomes very good at replicating that voice. So if you've got like a really vocal CEO who's really good at talking about the right things on LinkedIn, and the CEO suddenly is too busy or wants to spend less time on LinkedIn but continue to engage, you can train an AI to write like the CEO, and that comes with adding a lot of previous posts, trying to pinpoint exactly what makes it her or his voice, and the AI ironically can also help you do that. The AI can analyze posts and say that's what I think the tone of voice is, and then you train it back again. So it's always like a virtuous loop of training. Themed content calendar is super helpful. Deep research can be good for that, but you can use the normal AI modules of like, hey, what's coming up in 2026 that is relevant to XYZ? And then you'll get a calendar of every day, week, month that you need. And then you can adapt it to your own sector, but you can also train the AI to adapt it to your own sector. And then finally, what's really helpful with AI is that you can have the same piece of content but rewritten for different stakeholders. And that's something that would take a long time if you were doing it manually, but will take seconds for an AI. So just say, look, I have this one really great article. I don't have a social media manager. I want you to create 10 posts out of this. 2 for these audience, 2 for that audience, 2 for that audience. And I want you to be varied in your content. I want you to say something new every time, but without ever using any other resource than this content. That reminds me, actually, a good thing to include in prompts is a specifying what information you want the AI to use. So say, I want you to draft this using X document, Y document, X project resources. If you don't say that, the AI will make up something. So make sure you define the boundaries of the context for the AI. That's almost the most important thing. I'm just going to brush over this, but this is a social media strategy prompt example. Media relations, really helpful. This is the space I work in. So obviously I will always tell you that an AI can't replace a media relations person, but I generally think it's true. But it can definitely help you find some of the right journalists. It can, a deep research report on who covers carbon credits in the UK at the top tier publication will give you a 70% accurate report on who is actually writing right now. It will help you tailor. So if you've got a report and you want to send an email to a couple of journalists, but you don't know where to start by attaching their last 3 articles to a chat with an AI and say, and the thing you want to talk to them about and say, I want you to craft a pitch for this person that is tailored and based on what they've written before and that is short and sharp and we'll get to the point. And it can also help you prep for an interview. Media training, unfortunately, is probably going to be dead quite soon because AI is very good at that. Is really, really very good at put you in a situation of a interview. It's similar to the voice mode example I gave you. You can just basically set the scene for them and they're like, this is me prepping for a mock interview with The Guardian, climate correspondent. This is the topic. This is what I'm stressed about. Can you test me to my limits and then give me feedback on how I'm doing? Again, it's not obviously, you can do this in voice, you can do this in text, you can't do it in video yet, but I'm sure that will come. I've given you a prompt here to create a pitch email to a journalist. And then finally, just a little note on policy, public affairs. This is not my area, but these are things I thought about in ways you can use AI. You can use tools like Perplexity or even ChatGPT, I think will do it, is check when your issues appear in legislation, in committee transcripts or regulation. So you can set alerts in ChatGPT to have like weekly alerts on this. You can set up your weekly sort of digest. You can do that for a bunch of things, but I thought for legislation monitoring is particularly helpful. You can also analyze voting records for policymakers and say your local MP, like you want to engage them in whatever way you think is helpful. Start by analyzing their voting records and their website and build a persona of what they are likely to be interested in, and then craft an email that will play to these points. AI can do a sentiment analysis on public statements to identify, okay, what are people feeling about this issue right now? What could be the most receptive entry point for me? And then finally, again, not great for climate conscious charities, but you can use ChatGPT and Midjourney to create AI graphics. If you've got like a really complex policy issue or complex issue you want to talk about, AI can help you simplify it visually and also not visually. But those are all the things I thought about, but I'm sure there are a lot more. I wanted to do a demo on this, but I think actually I'm going to leave it just for time's sake because I want to leave time for question. But this is very simple. Gamma, create a free account. First of all, go to the AI, create the copy for your presentation. So here you've got an example of like 3 low-cost creative ideas for a campaign to change the public narrative around breastfeeding. So the AI will give you really good ideas, and then you feed those ideas to Gamma. It's literally just a text box where you paste it in, and then you hit the button, create a slide deck. And on the free version of Gamma, you've got 10 slides. And all of a sudden, you've got a presentation about a campaign to do exactly what you wanted to do in the first place. And obviously, you can tweak these at any point in the workflow so that you get to a content that you're really happy with. But Gamma is really, really good for that, for presentation, and you don't need the paid version to do a short presentation. So to sum up, well, actually not sum up because I've not said this before, but start small. So, and if it's overwhelming, the cost, the amount of tools, start with ChatGPT because that's the most popular and easier to use probably. And then try one use case, social media posts, marketing strategy, website audit, and then measure either the added value you got from it that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise or the time saved. And then decide how to roll that out to your entire team. And then learn from results. What I say is one big challenge of charities is that yes, 1 or 2 people may be using AI, but there's no like standardized way to use AI across the charity, and not everyone has the same level. Have an AI champion that will start this process, that will experiment, find the right recipe, find the right tool, find the right setup, and then we'll train everyone else on it. This is just like a list of things that you can use to be a bit efficient. So repurposing content, I've spoken about one piece of content, turn it into multiple formats. Develop multiple content pieces in one session. So say you've got like a 2-hour board call recording where you talked about the annual report and all the things you've achieved, feed that to an AI, say, create a blog post, a social campaign, a letter to my board members. AI is very good at frameworks and templates as well. So if you're lacking idea or creativity about how to create a template for something new that you want to do, get it to create a template for you and reuse it over and over again. And then yeah, AI first drafts. I have not done a first draft of anything in about 18 months. So it has its downsides because you lose a bit of intelligence and a bit of creativity. But in terms of time saved, it's so much easier to have something to react to than to face a blank page. So I would encourage doing a little bit of that. Sorry, my last few slides. Concerns around data security. Paid plans is the best way. Authentic voice, style guides is the best way. Factual accuracy, again, I've said this, ask the AI to provide a source for each point made. And then ethical consideration, it's down to you to develop your policies for the boundaries you put to your AI usage. It's not something that I can really help, or the AI companies who are all pretty much a little bit evil can help with. You guys need to set the boundaries for yourselves, probably. I have linked some things in there for you. So you have an OpenAI for charities. I don't know exactly what the benefits are, but there's a form here. So that would probably give you access to ChatGPT, the paid plan, for a discount. Otter AI is like Fireflies or Granola, it's a transcription tool. See if you can get a discount. There's a free AI fundraising tool called Zephy. That's pretty good. And then there's like a long list of other discounts. And then here are newsletters that you can follow or sign up to get ideas about what new tools are coming out every week. There's also an AI playbook for charities that I read that looked quite good. So all of this will be linked in the presentation I share with you guys. Okay, that's it. Bang. Well, not too late, hopefully.
Camille, that was amazing. There's so much information in there. Thank you so much. I do have some questions that people have put to us in the chat, if you're happy for me to just go through those quickly. Sue has said, great presentation, thank you. Our charity supports a rare disease patients and medical communities across the world. Do you have any recommendations for live audible translations?
Live audible translations. So you mean like an AI that would translate things live?
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay.
So we have often, all the presentations are usually given in English, but we have anywhere from kind of 20 different languages that we could do with it translating, and for it to be live and medical content, it's quite costly, and we're trying to identify if there's any way we can do that. It's fine for print, we can do that afterwards and have it double checked. But yeah, I wondered if there was anything that you kind of had any
Yes.
recommendations or thoughts around.
Have a look at DeepL.
Okay.
DeepL.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how many languages it does, but also have a look at what ChatGPT supports, because I have ChatGPT on my phone. The settings in English, but if I speak in French to it, it understands and it will give
Okay.
me a French. So it's possible that in the free versions of some of these tools, there's already a live translation integrated. Again, I don't know if you'll have your needs for like the 30 languages, but you can start with a couple at least.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I'll just
Thank
interject
you.
on that if you want. With the new iOS 26, the artificial intelligence, or the intelligence it has in there, does live translation.
I'm waiting to see whether that works.
It does work. I've tried it. Yeah, I haven't tried it in many languages, but I believe it does work on quite a few languages.
Yeah, no, that's true. Apple are betting on live translation a lot. They said that the AirPods are going to have live translation.
Yeah, they do have live translation. It's a bit funky, but it's like everything else. I mean, it's whether someone then develops an app which then you can use as part and to support a presentation, so that everyone who's then speaking or taking part in it does a. I mean, you can obviously use captions anyway. That Copilot in Google will do that and translate as people are talking on the go anyway. So yeah, but it's just been a fun. My apologies, I was a bit late. I thought it was 1:30, not 1 o'clock. So I'm sure I'll catch up on everything. But it's been great. I mean, it's obviously, we're a small charity but a big brand, so it's going to help immensely in terms of what our plans are. So thanks very much.
Glad.
Thanks, Andy. The recording will be available at the end, so
Yeah,
you can
thank
catch
goodness.
up on what you've missed. Also, Alison Eastwood said, thank you for a great presentation. Do you have any advice on resources that you can share to support small charities to develop their first AI policy?
Use AI. That's how I wrote our policy. I basically went to ChatGPT and said, this is who we are, this is the values we believe in, this is what we're a bit concerned about, these are our clients and what I think they might be concerned about. Can you share like a template of a good AI policy that I can use?
Perfect, thank you. Are there any other questions? Those are the
Could I
questions I
just
think.
ask Camille, just one question, which is really, when obviously you're using AI and particularly ChatGPT, a lot of people are under the misconception that it just regurgitates what's out there. Google does in some respects. You put in a search term and then it gives you, and you can cut and paste and do all those sorts of things. But AI is very unique, isn't it? Yeah. On the basis of your prompt, it just doesn't cut and paste. Yeah. It provides a response to what your prompt is.
Yeah, no, it's not copy and pasting. Yes, it is using information that is out there and playing it back to you in the way you want it. But every prompt is different and every output is different.
Yeah.
One criticism about AI is AI generated content is immediately spotable if you don't know. If you like, I work with AI every day. I go on LinkedIn, it's just a sea of people who have used AI to write their LinkedIn posts. So I should say this. The authentic voice guidelines and a thorough human review will ensure that the AI is actually great for the first draft, but then you add your touch to it. Because yes, one big problem with AI generated content is that, like people who have worked with AI know when AI is behind a piece of content. It doesn't mean that the AI is behind the entire piece of content, but there are telltale sentences. And so maybe that's what they mean by copy paste. Yes, it's very generic, but it's generic for a reason. It is trained on public data that tends to be generic anyway.
From the large language models that are generated to train them.
Exactly.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's one of those things where when people ask it, everyone just thinks it's cutting and pasting, and it's not. So.
Thanks, Andy. Any other questions from anyone else? I think we've covered all the ones that were in the chat there, but if there is anything, please do ask while we've got Camille.
Sorry, I was just looking at some of the questions myself as well. Yeah, I'm just looking at Fiona's comment on being wary of dipping your toes. I completely get it, and it's hard because charities are on the good side of humanity, and if they're on there, then who is fighting against the big tech evil people? But in the same way, charities also have the most to benefit from AI in terms of getting scale, doing good, getting more donors. So it's kind of play the game or get played, I guess, is the bottom line, which is not a very optimistic way to look at things, but I generally think at this point in time, it is more harmful to ignore it than to at least experiment with it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much, Camille, and thanks to everyone that's joined us today. I hope you found the session useful and thought-provoking, and hopefully you've picked up some practical ideas to take back to the workplace. As always, we'll send round a link to the recording and Camille's slides as well. But if you'd like any further information from either myself or Camille, please do reach out. And obviously, just a quick one to say, we are a recruitment business, so if you do have any need for an expert like this, we're always available to help charities like yours find the right people. So do bear us in mind, and hopefully we'll see you at future boardrooms. Thank you so much, Camille.
Thanks everyone for tuning in and